night. A lot of good drives that
hmm
didn't finish. What's the takeaway from that?
It's really frustrating because obviously, red zone wise, we've been, one of the best teams in the league in the red zone. So it's frustrating when that happens because when you have good drives and you get it going and then you just can't capitalize on it with a touchdown. You come to the sideline, you're excited about the drive and we had good plays, but ultimately, when we get down in there, we want to score touchdowns. That's the name of the business for us on offense, and it's frustrating. On the positive side, when you look at it, it's like, okay, let's see what they're doing when it's in game. What are they doing? Is it us? Is it them? How do we fix this as we go? And then when you come back and you look at the game after the game, it's the same kind of process. You go through it. And fortunately, we've been very good down in those areas throughout the year. That's the one thing we've been good at, and we just got to keep building on that and find new ways to score. We've had a couple drives where we were on the fringe of the red zone and we just couldn't quite push it through, and we just got to continue that. The one drive we got it down to the one, we had an inefficient run, then we had a penalty, and that kind of knocked us out a little bit. But you're fighting to get back in there, so we just got to capitalize when we get down there.
What's your role in managing Jalen this week? His how he's feeling about himself, his performance, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't think he changes, from week to week, day to day, game to game. He's awesome. I mean, we were in meetings today. He was awesome. The dialogue was awesome with the installs and everything, walkthrough. He was into it. So he really does a good job of just separating what happened and where he wants to go going forward and what's appropriate for that week, as far as studying and putting the time into it. So, like, he's always dialed in at all times. You never have to worry about that.
I think there's a stat out there that I think when he goes over 30 pass attempts, I think the record's 1 in 5. Do you try to be cognizant of that to maybe try to not get him over that number to kind of run the ball a little bit more?
I think when you look at those kind of numbers, it depends on the game, right? We had an overtime game, so we had more plays. If you have more third downs or you have, more passes in the 2 minutes, sometimes those numbers can go up. So if you look at it situationally, sometimes you can see your target, area of trying to be very balanced, which is always what we want to try to do. And if it gets over those kind of numbers, if a quarterback's throwing it a ton, why is it? Is it situational ball? We have a lot of third downs. We have a lot of 2-minute drives. Do we get an overtime where we're doing something? Are we on the ball? We're pushing the pace and we're completing it. So I think when you look at it from there, that kind of tells you more of the picture. I don't think when you just look at numbers, that's really a thing. Or if you're down by points or you chasing points, we've had some games like that this year too. So I don't think it's a real stat that you really need to look at too much.
I know you guys don't want the turnovers, but it did seem like the passing game and the running game were both clicking on Monday night. Was that just a result of maybe what the Chargers were doing, or do you feel like there was a schematic thing that you use that you feel can be a positive moving forward for you guys?
It's a definite positive. I think we've been close multiple times. In certain games, you can see the Vikings game, the Giants. There's certain games where we've been kind of on it and able to push through and do some really good things. Some games it's kind of been up and down, and we've had those moments where obviously we know we want to be better. But I think there were some positives that came out of that game. We were able to do some different things that we've been pushing towards doing and trending towards at times that showed up and was very encouraging. I think the guys felt pretty good about the things we did well on. They know what we need to fix and kind of continue to grow from, and the plan can keep growing from there, especially this week going forward.
But Jalen's specifically how he attacked the middle zones of the field. What did you take away from Monday night, and can he build on those things?
I think for sure. I mean, he did a good job. And I know we talked about the turnovers, but like when you look at the game as a whole, he did a good job of seeing the coverage and throwing the ball where it needed to be versus certain things and finding guys and anticipating some throws. So it was really good to see. And he had done that before in multiple other games. So it's just building on that and finding what a defense does. And if they give you something that you can attack, you got to go in on it and put it, in practice and work on it. And so he gets those reps and it shows up in the game. And that's kind of the pattern you want to do. You want to keep putting things in so that when you practice them and then they appear in the game, you can build on it from there and you have confidence going forward.
I know you mentioned the pass attempts being high. The rush attempts, just game to game, have been low for him. What is that a product of? And also, like, if his element as a runner in the system, can it reach its potential without that being as frequent as it has been in the past?
I think we've talked about it before, right? So it just depends on what they're doing on defense, if it's available. And then there are some runs that do get handed off where potentially he could pull, right? And so that's a lot of what happens from game to game. And there's some that he pulls and he throws. So some of them do get called, and it just depends on what, how he's reacting to the defense. So I don't think there's a set number we're trying to necessarily push towards. It's, are they giving it to us? Does it show up? Is it in the plan? Then we like it. Then, then we call it and see what happens with it.
Some of those new things you mentioned, how do you weigh that so late in the season, week 14, week 15? maybe guys aren't in their comfort level from what has been going on. When you put that kind of stuff in or just call it more, how do you sort of weigh that during the week?
So really what it goes back to is there's always a foundation from something, right? So whether it was a play we had in training camp or an earlier game plan, and what you're trying to do is just kind of build from that and give examples and why it's being used and how to do it and why we want to do it. And so you're always referring back to something to try to build on. And so when you put new things in, you got to practice and rep it. And if it's not ready that week, if it's not ready this week, well, maybe it works next week. And if it does, we'll put it in next week again, or you tweak it slightly. So you just kind of, you're always slowly developing things as you go, and you feel like it's time to put them in and they're ready to get called, you get them called. So I think it's just kind of a process over the season. And if there's something that we've done in the past that we can bring back and kind of retool it and do something different with it, that's available too. So it's all about reps and practice, really for every position. It doesn't matter whether it's the quarterback, the receivers, the O-line, running backs. It's just being familiar with the practice of, hey, this is the play, this is why we're trying to do it. And if we get this opportunity, this is what it should look like and feel like. And if it's not that, how do we problem solve it? And so you go through that process of, if this is not the coverage we're looking for, the front we're looking for, how do we effectively get the most out of this play? And so sometimes it does take a little bit of time when you're doing new things, and then when you're comfortable, you can just let them rip.
So
So there
would
was
you
a lot of
say
talk last
it's
week.
more organic than, say, this particular week, we want to improve this aspect?
It's going to be a little bit of both, right? You got to be confident, and the players have to be confident in what that new thing is. You can roll out anything new you want that week, but if it's so new that players and coaches are like, well, this might work, that's probably going to be a little bit tricky. So what you want to do is you always want to make sure that, A, it's detailed, right, as far as the coaching and the player standpoint, but everybody's comfortable with it, because ultimately, once it gets called, right, the players have to go execute it. So it's a matter of just being comfortable with those calls and understanding their defensive techniques and what we're looking for and how to do it.
There was a lot of talk last week about Nick being more involved in the
Mhm.
offense. I was wondering from your perspective, what it looks like when Nick is more involved, and then how helpful that was to have him more.
So really, I've been here obviously for 5 years, so it's funny because it's really no different than any other year as far as Nick being involved. And so when you go back to Shane and Kellen and myself and Brian, whoever, he's always been involved, right? He always obviously knows what we're doing, and he's an awesome resource for all of us as coordinators. And that's the coolest part about him is he'll do anything. So if I say, hey, I need you to help me on this, he'll do it, or whatever it may be. And that's, I think, the best part of his leadership style and him being a head coach. He's able to do that, remove himself from it, see the big picture, and help out where needed. And so, really each week he does what he needs to. He'll ask me things, and we'll go back and forth. And ultimately, when he feels like, hey, I can help, it's been great. And that's really, like I said, you go back to our first couple of years. I mean, he was extremely hands-on. That's the way he's always been. So it's super beneficial, his expertise and stuff. And him and I have worked together, obviously, every year in so many different ways, whether it was head coaching stuff, offensive stuff. So we work really, really well together. So it's fun and a good process to have him, throughout the week, to bounce things off of him and get it going.
Nancy will face Kenny Pickett this week. You were with him obviously
Mhm.
last year in a different role, but what are your thoughts about him as a quarterback, and could that be an advantage for you guys knowing what he likes to do?
I don't know if it's an advantage per se. I don't know their game plan on offense and how they're going to use him, but I will say Kenny's a great guy. He worked extremely hard for us last year, was always ready and prepared, and did a nice job in the games he had to play in. He really did. I really like Kenny. I think his football IQ is really strong, and he's a good player. So I don't really know their offense per se. I haven't really watched him on tape a bunch, but Kenny's going to work hard, and he's going to come in. Obviously, he's a local guy, and he's going to want to do something. So we'll see.
Whenever you ask Nick for help, what kind of resource is he? What do you ask him for help on?
Well, really, it just depends on what we're doing that week. As far as whether it's game plan, whether it's game management stuff, just there's a lot of conversation. There's things that we'd like to talk through from Monday through even Sunday morning prior to a game, and there's kind of like a list of things we always do since we've been here together, and we work through those. And sometimes it takes us longer to work through them, and it kind of feels like at the end of the week, once you get through it all, you're really prepared for the game. So that's kind of how we go through it together, and we've been doing it now for 5 years, and it's been pretty good.